today's creative space, I am delighted to have Lucia Murray, who is the winner of the 2023 Without Pen Challenge. Without Pen is a project that I started back in 2004 with the intention of nurturing and showcasing literary arts in Antigua and Barbuda. So I feel a little bit like a proud mama right now. I hope Lucia will forgive me that feeling, but that's a little bit how I feel that this project is still going against the odds because I don't know how it's still going. And that Lucia is one of the examples of the developmental aspect of it because Lucia was a finalist a few years ago and now she's a winner. Congratulations, Lucia.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Am I saying your name correctly? Is it Lucia or Lucia?
It's actually Lucia, but I don't mind if people call me Lucia. So
No, 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 no. Make sure people call your name right. I've had too many Jones and Joannas and things. No, I correct people. I'm like, no, no, that's Joe
all right,
Hadley.
yeah,
People can mess up Joe Hadley.
it's Lucia.
Lucia, cool. And it might be L.E. Murray, am I correct? That's a pen name you're dancing with. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm trying out.
All right. I remember like Joe Hadley was supposed to be my pen name at one point, but it has kind of become almost like an alter ego because by the time I was putting stuff out into the world, it was Joanne C. Hillhouse, and the C is important because I'm not the only Joanne Hillhouse. And Joe Hadley became this thing that I could do other things with. And I think of the writing space as belonging to Joe Hadley even, which I think you will understand as a writer that sometimes you enter the page with a different mindset. Like you're free on the page. Do you feel free on the page?
Yes, I do.
Explain that feeling to me. So for the people who are listening, who are like, what do they mean by free? You're free in life, right? What does that feeling feel like for you?
No, I feel like I kind of said whatever I am like in real life almost. And I just kind of like if I'm writing from the perspective of a certain character, I kind of not necessarily become that character, but it's like I kind of channel them or I become immersed in whatever world I'm like seeing in my mind's eye or whatever. Um, yeah, it's just I don't know, words kind of fail me right now. But
It's kind of go ahead.
no, no, so I don't even know what I was gonna say next.
Tell me about the writing of Old Hill Old Hike
Oh, like yeah,
does not dream of baby's blood. I love that title by the way. Did I say it right?
thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about the writing of that.
Yeah, so it started as like I was looking around, because usually if I sometimes like I'll just have random thoughts in my head and then I'll document them as like blurbs or whatever on my computer. And I was looking around because I had seen um the announcement for the Wadali pen competition and I wanted to enter again. So I was trying to come up with ideas. And I was looking through my notes, my blurbs, and I saw this sentence that I had written, just the Oleg is misunderstood. And I remembered that I had written it kind of in response to this story that my mom had told me. Because the Oleg is like a Guyanese folklore figure, not exclusive to Guyana, of course, and it's similar to the Sukuyan. But my mom was telling me that when she was little, to get her to eat her food, her mom would tell her that the Oleg, like she would tell the Oleg down the street, and she would come for her or whatever.
Why
And
Caribbean
in
parents like this? Why are Caribbean parents like this? Oh my
honestly,
God. Every story that I know of that is like from my mom. My mom is Dominican, your mom is Guyanese.
yeah,
And they use these parables and these things to keep you in line. It's like, no, other parents are protecting their children from horror movies. Why are you trying to terrify us?
and the thing is like. there was actually an old lady that lived at the end of the street, and she's just a regular old lady. And so when my would see her, she would run in the opposite direction. She was so scared of this woman. And she was just a regular lady. So
And
I
this lady does not
really,
know that she lives now in Lucia's imagination, several couple of generations down the road. Well, that's the thing that writing does too as well, though, right? It takes all these things from life and it immortalizes them in a way. It transforms and immortalizes them. When I talk about going back to our conversation about the freedom on the page, I was also thinking of it as the freedom to just, you don't censor yourself at all. You don't judge your characters at all, even the ones that you don't understand. You're like, okay, let me try to get you so I can write this. And then the taking things and just twisting them and making them something else. That's the magic of it and the freedom of it, I think. What do you think about that?
yeah, I agree. Is it just allowing yourself to have like allowing yourself to express yourself and not think about how your characters or the writing itself might be perceived. Just kind of doing whatever with it, kind of throwing words to paper, that kind of thing.
One of the things that I like that you do is that because it is a challenge when you're reading 101, and I wasn't judging this year, but I've judged in the past, 101 stories, and people here make it Caribbean. And so you find that they kind of lean into the cliches. Now, you can take a story that uses a traditional character like an old hag, like a Sukiya, but you don't have to make it cliche or traditional, or you can like knock down the wall with it. And you've done that. I find that that is still a challenge for some people. And as someone who has written to the competition, because I don't always find success writing to a competition. Like if there's a competition I want to enter, I'll have to go on, usually, most of the time, I'll go and repurpose because I'm writing all the time. But the idea of, okay, so now I've done it, but it's hard. So now you're thinking of writing to that thing as opposed to just letting the creative process be. Explain to other people who might be trying to access spaces like not just for Deadly Pen, but other spaces where they can platform their writing, how to navigate that idea of don't write to what you think they want to hear. Even though you're writing for the competition, still write true, still write creatively, still write out of the box. Can you talk a little bit about navigating that process?
Um, wow. I'm not really sure what to say. I don't know.
When you sat
I
down to
guess,
write, when you sat down to write, did you feel
uh-huh.
boxed in any way? And did you feel like I have to hit these marks? Or did you feel free? Explain, talk a little bit, kind of walk through the process of writing it as much as you can.
Okay. Honestly, I didn't feel boxed in, and I feel like that might be in part because I wasn't trying, I wasn't writing with the intention of winning anything or trying to get any kind of prize. I wasn't, I just I was kind of just using the competition as a sort of prompt and a way for me to actually write something because that's something I struggle with is motivation or kind of having the discipline to consistently write stuff because sometimes when the inspiration isn't there, just kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to write. So for me, I viewed it more as just a prompt for writing, not something that I was seeking to win or get anything out of. And I think that helped and made it more free. And like I felt like there was less pressure and less constraints. It was more just like, well, if something comes of it, then something comes of it. But if not, then I still feel satisfaction in the fact that I wrote something. Because prior to that, it had been like, I think maybe a few months since I'd written like a short story of any kind. So it was nice to just kind of throw myself back into it.
I think that that approach is exactly the right mindset to have. That's how when I have success, the most success with the stuff I submit is when I'm using it as a way to motivate myself, to challenge myself. The winning is brought up if I win, if I get published, but the writing is like, because there's so many things as well. You're much younger than I am, but there's so many things to take you away from the writing. Apart from Black motivation, you're trying to make a living, this, that, is the other. And if you say, okay, so this thing wants me to write about to leave. Keep that in your head. Okay, that date. Okay, keep that in your head. And then you walk around with the idea of writing about to leave, but you're not writing to that thing. You're just using it as a way to get yourself going and to give you a point of focus. And that helps me as well. So yeah, you had the right mindset. How do you interpret the must have a Caribbean aesthetic? Because that has been the one thing, the competition, the challenge has changed so much over the years, but I've always been insistent that the entries must have a Caribbean mindset. Or Caribbean aesthetic is the word I use. How do you process that? Like, is that a hurdle or is that not a hurdle?
For me, not it's not really a hurdle. I try to, with the stuff I write, have some degree of Caribbeanness in my work, I guess, because I'm from the Caribbean. I've grown up in the Caribbean. It's something that informs my experiences. I just feel like it's not that hard for me to also put it into my writing. I think it also does help to read other Caribbean authors and see the way that they tackle writing about the Caribbean, if they do. Um, and I think that helps make it less difficult for people who might find it difficult to tackle.
I know when I put that stamp on it, for me it was about kind of reframing how we think about literary arts. We read so many, just not just the literary arts, the arts in general. We consume so much from outside, and I wanted us to center ourselves in the writing. That's all. You don't have to write about anything in particular, but it's the eyes that take you into the story, the feet that walk into the story, she should come from where you start, where you are, because you matter too. Your stories matter too. And I find that even though we look around and see so much of us, we still think of the outside in as having more value. Is that still true for your generation?
I think things are I think things are changing, but there is still definitely an outside influence that affects the art being created, I think, by other Caribbean people my age. Again though, I do think things are changing and I'm seeing more art that centers the Caribbean as opposed to, I don't know, for example, set in being set outside of the Caribbean or have or like artwork, for example, that doesn't like some people might immediately default to like for example drawing white characters. You'll see more people drawing black characters, characters that look like them. That's like
Yeah.
one of the simplest examples I can see because I follow a fair amount of younger artists from the Caribbean, and you're not seeing, if they like to do cartoon characters, you're not seeing white characters, you're seeing black characters, brown characters, characters that come from their experience and the people who they live around and who they exist with.
Were your first characters white, black, or brown, or something else?
Brown/black. I've never centered white characters in my stories or my artwork. I guess, I don't know. It's just been like around me, I'm surrounded by black and brown people. I'm, I never sought to like make a white character. I don't know.
But over the years, and I don't judge it, I understand it because I experienced it where you see a lot of stories coming in with the type of hair and the type of eye color and the type of thing that's not really representative of the person who's writing. And then that's not to say you can't write outside of the specific you. You can write other types of things. The hybridization of it, all of it is possible. But I do think it's telling when our first engagement with the page is we're mirroring what we've read. I did it. I'm writing like I think my first story was set on a plantation and there were white people and black people in terror, and it's like I haven't experienced that, but that some combination of what I was reading or what I was taking, what I thought story was. And I'm glad that I've evolved out of that into just story can be anything and it doesn't even have to be grand. That's the other thing. The idea that you can just write a specific moment, especially with a competition like this. It doesn't have to be epic, it doesn't have to sweep, it just has to something has to shift a little bit, you know? And then that becomes think of it in art like a relief of a bigger painting almost. And segue, you're an artist, you're a visual artist. I was looking at some of your art and I was like, okay, this is interesting because it's not quote unquote traditional tourist art at all. It's
Yeah.
very much it's very much in the tradition. If you're looking at the Antiguan artists that came before you, it's very much in the tradition of, say, a Mark Brown, in that sometimes it's almost like a hellish dreamscape. It's the imagination without walls, without fences, and it's also there's a lot of symbolism, but also there's a lot of play. I love play in creating. There's a lot of let me see where this goes, and I think that's what I see in your art. Is anything that I'm saying resonating? Is any of that reflecting what you're doing?
Yes, yeah, for sure. A lot of that dreamscape type of stuff and a lot of playing and experimentation. I just I know a lot of people by now, like at my age, would have figured out this style. I don't know if I have a set style, but I
I'm sorry,
I
her
really like
age is all of what, 24, 22,
24.
24. You figured out what at 24? Like, life? I am 50. I ain't figured out, bleep, not a thing. Still working on it.
Yeah, I mean I do know certain artists have like a set style that they're known for. I don't know if I necessarily have that, but I try not to let that idea of like, oh, I need to figure out what's my style and keep making pieces of that style. I try to not let that impede my creative process. I like to experiment, try different things, be looser with the pieces. Sometimes I can get caught up in the details of a piece and then I start feeling nauseous and like I start taking it a little too seriously. And I try to avoid that and kind of have a freeness when I'm creating a piece. That doesn't always happen, but that's what I try to do.
But isn't that what you call nauseous feeling also part of it? I mean, some of the art we create is walking through the darkness as well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's just that the nauseousness can kind of prevent me from continuing the piece. And it's like if I want to finish, then.
Yeah,
But I agree. I agree. It is all a part of the process.
yeah. In terms of themes that you're drawn to, I know you did. I think you did a residency with Intersect.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm the resident artist.
Yes, you're the resident. Let me tell you, that's a dream. To be a resident artist or to be a resident writer. Institutions in Antigua and in the Caribbean need to look at this more. Banks can have resident artists and writers. Schools can have resident artists and writers. Communities can have libraries can have resident artists and writers. It's a way and at one time there was an Amtrak writers residency where the writer would board Amtrak, this Amtrak in the US, the train. They board in one state and they write it all the way, and the only thing they're required to do is write, and they get paid to cover their time, and then they publish whatever they produce. Um, they've had subway residencies. It's like it's about sitting around, allowing a writer to be in a space, and the only thing that you're asking of them is create, because that enriches all of us. I find that there's not enough understanding of that in the Caribbean, in my opinion. You might disagree, but I was happy to see that intersect. I don't know if they can afford to pay you or not, but the idea of it is that it's kind of getting put into the soil that, yeah, this is an artist, and her job is to create stuff around gender and all the stuff that we talk about. However, her spirit is. So talk to me about that experience and what you think about the idea of residencies. We need more.
Yeah, I agree completely. We need more residencies. Um, Being a resident artist for Intersect, it's been great because I mean I'm also a part of the executive team, so I do more outside of just creating the art pieces, but just being a part of the team and having my artwork be used for these like specific purposes of communicating our values and trying to illustrate the themes that we have every time we have the Caribbean Feminist Stories project, all that stuff. It's I don't know, it's just been a really enriching experience. We are not for profit, so we want like I wouldn't get paid as much as like maybe like if you were uh, a resident artist for I don't know, do companies have resident or like some huge organization with a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I like I really appreciate the fact that my work is valued. Like all the members, they encourage me, they really enjoy my artwork, and it feels really nice to see other people enjoy my artwork as well. Um, yeah, just being reminded of the value of what I do, and receiving that appreciation means a lot. Um,
You
but
mentioned,
yeah, I
go
oh
ahead.
sorry.
No, go
No,
ahead.
I was gonna say, um, and with that, I really do think we could have more residencies for artists and writers. I feel like part of why we probably don't have that is because of how undervalued the arts are. I mean, not just in the Caribbean, but worldwide. I feel like it's
Well, especially in
so
the Caribbean, yes.
undervalued. Yeah,
Especially,
yeah, definitely, especially in
I
the
see
Caribbean.
things happening. I think I see things happening in other parts of the world. I see things happening in other parts of the Caribbean. I'm like, why not here? Anyway,
Yeah,
like I mean, we have okay. Take for instance, writers. Neither of us are hustling for a gig here. This is not the point of me saying this, but they have writer residencies in other Caribbean countries that are paid for by the state. You have a poet, you have a poet laureate in Barbados, in Jamaica, in Virgin Islands. You have you've had writers' residencies to some of the one of the Windward Islands. I forget which one. I think it might have been St. Vincent. And I'm like, hmm, we could do better. We don't even years ago, about 2011, they used to have when the last independence literary arts organ, um, the organizer of the writing competition they had sporadically for independence literary um, read an open letter. I was there. The letters on the Without the Pen website and said we need a dedicated literary arts person, just like we have dance people, pan people. Look at what has happened with pan because of dedicated pan people. And up to this day, up to this day. So to me, it's yes, the whole world. Look at what's happening in America with the writers' strike and the actors' strike and so on. The whole world, but also here in a different level. I don't know your thoughts.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree. I don't even know if I have anything to add, but yeah, I I I really wish that there like people there's like a stigma when you say, you want to pursue art, you want to pursue writing. People think, you can't. And I feel like another reason that it's undervalued is because people think you can't make a profit from it, which is, I mean, a fault of a society that values money and profit above all else, right? Um, but yeah,
Values money and profit above all else, but wants artists to work for the love of it only.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
So, do you feel more hopeful though? Because I mean, when I started, one of the reasons I started with that depend, I had just published my first book, and the struggle had been so real to get to that point. And the main struggle is trying to figure out, one, is it possible? And two, how do I do it? And I don't have any models that I don't have any, just feeling at sea in terms of growing up in Antigua and knowing that it's like being called to do something and being told, well, do anything else. But this is what I'm called to do. It's like, so trying to figure that out. And then kind of getting into the mindset of what can I do so that it's not like this for the next generation and next generation of writers. And so I guess what I'm asking you is it the same or is there any difference? Has anything shifted? Do you feel like, I know you said how people perceive it, but is it completely shut down? I mean, I see more books and writing and so on happening. So I'm assuming that more people are stepping into that space, not claiming credit for that, but that idea that more people are self-publishing and doing other things. Um, and I definitely see a lot more artists, visual artists as well. But do you feel less or more hopeful? Has anything shifted? Like, what is it like for your generation of writer or creative saying, okay, this is what I want to do? Is there Are there avenues for you to figure it out, or do you still feel as at sea as I did, or as at sea as I described feeling?
I definitely feel like there's more hope. I do feel more hopeful because there are more avenues, I think now compared to before, that you can get your art and writing out there. Like we have the internet, for example, where you can build a community like that. You can, I feel like self-publishing is also more of a thing now compared to before. Um, as on an individual level, as I'm still trying to find my footing as a writer and artist, I do feel a bit lost at sea. Like, how can I, or should I go forward? Because I mean, even with all these new avenues, they also present their own challenges. Like, for artists online, you can't just make the art piece anymore and post it. There are all these other things you have to do. Like if you want to get more engagement or widen your audience, you have to think about making Instagram reels if you use Instagram, posting to your story, trying to interact more and like finding the optimal times to post, all that kind of stuff. Um, but compared to back then, compared to when you started, I do think
In the
that
dinosaur era.
not so far back, not so far back, but
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
uh,
I,
I
I
do
know what
think
you
there's
mean.
been an improvement, and there's definitely more hope for the up and coming artists and writers.
So as we wind down, what are you working on now? What are you reading? Who are you driving with as an artist? And what's next? All that. What are you working on
Oh my
now? What are you
God.
reading? Who are you vibing with? And what's next?
Okay, so for what I'm working on now, I really want to start writing like a long form story, like maybe a book. I'm still trying to, it's very like I have the idea and stuff. I have the characters that I wanna work with, but it feels like the idea of writing a book feels so daunting. Like, there are chapters and all that. So just having to wrangle with that and just push myself to actually just start writing the thing. Like I tell myself, it doesn't matter where in the story you start, just start, just write something. But so that's a thing that I'm trying to work towards. Um,
What are you
I'm
vibing with?
also
No, sorry.
in
So continue your thought. Continue your thought. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
no, it's fine. I was just gonna say like I'm also doing new art pieces. Like one of my more recent ones that I'm working on is a larger piece. I usually like lately I've been doing smaller physical pieces, but for the first time in a few years, I'm doing a big piece on Bristol board. And so that's been fun to get back into that again.
Is that for
Um,
yourself or is that commission?
it's actually for me because I was just like, I want to do a big piece. So it's for me, but I don't know. We'll see. My mom says she wants to put it on her wall, so it
Your mom
might
sounds
end up
very
being
supportive of
something
your
for
art.
her.
I love to hear that.
Yes, she is, and I'm very grateful for that. But yeah.
Okay, and so we're gonna wrap up. What would you say to anyone listening, starting by since you are for the next year the reigning Without Pen champion? What would you say to anyone about Without Pen? I'm not gonna prompt you in any way, just you've entered it twice. Anything you want to say about it?
Sorry, your voice cut out a little bit.
Not saying I'm gonna ask you to end by saying something about the Without Pen experience. Anything you want to say about it? To anyone who's listening, whether it's just anything. I don't want to prompt you. Just when I say would that depend, that's a prompt.
Okay. Well,
And
I mean,
pretend I'm not at all associated with it. So you don't have to say good things. Just like what you're just would that depend? That's a prompt. I'm out of it. I'm over here. I'm not even
okay.
listening.
Well, I mean, aside from it having been great as like just the competition itself being a great prompt for me, to write something and come up with something and, you know, put my stories out there. Just being there at the festival, it was really nice. It was encouraging to be around other people and other writers and people who appreciate storytelling and the literary arts because I feel like it really helps foster a space um, for art expression and storytelling and creativity, which I feel like it's really vital to have that kind of space because those things are a fundamental parts of any society. Like the arts are the soul of human civilization. It's a vessel for culture, history, imagination, expression, and the human experience. And I feel like with Deadly Pen, as the competition, as the festival, it it fosters all of that. You can see all of that when you participate at, and when you're physically there at the fest.
Okay. Um, Thank you so much, Lucia. I'm saying your name right, ending it right. Um, you give me some food for thought about how Without Pen could also better serve writers. So that's something I'm taking away from this conversation. There's something you just said set off a light bulb in my head. Um, but keep writing. You are extremely talented. As a writer, you're one of those writers that you're also an artist. That doesn't seem fair, you know. you know. Um, I hope you keep going, and I want to thank you for taking the time to chat a little bit with me today about you creating. And I don't know, I didn't ask your thoughts about AI, but I don't think AI could do what you do. There's a
Oh,
there's a soul of it.
I
Thank you.
agree.
Thank you for your time. All right,
Thank you so much for having me.
cool.